Have you ever seen a tiny spoonful of shiny black pearls sitting delicately on a porcelain dish and wondered, why on earth is that so expensive? And then you look over at a sushi bar where bright orange fish eggs are generously piled on top of a roll and think, wait, aren't those pretty much the same thing? They're both just fish eggs. So why does one cost a small fortune while the other is just a crunchy topping? Well, not exactly. Today, we're stepping into one of the most misunderstood corners of the culinary world, a place where ancient fish, royal traditions, global farming practices, and centuries of craftsmanship collide. Welcome to the fascinating world of caviar versus fish roe. Two terms that sound interchangeable, yet separated by history, biology, culture, and price tags so far apart you'd think they came from different planets. Let's dive deep into what truly separates these delicacies, and why one can cost thousands per kilo while the other sells for the price of a sandwich. So let's begin with the simplest part of the puzzle. What exactly is fish roe? In the most basic sense, roe means fish eggs, nothing more, nothing less. It refers to the fully developed egg masses inside female fish and certain marine creatures like sea urchins. These are the same eggs that, if fertilized, could grow into baby fish. And here's the key distinction that underpins everything else you're about to learn: all caviar is roe, but not all roe is caviar. Roe is a giant umbrella category. If a fish produces eggs, those eggs are technically roe. The ruby-like beads you see on sushi, tobiko, from flying fish. Roe. Those large, translucent orange pearls served over warm rice in Japanese dishes like a kurodon. That's salmon roe. Even the tiny yellow clusters you find in Scandinavian cuisine, capelin roe. These are all different types of roe, harvested from different fish with different flavors, textures, and uses. Yet despite how visually exciting or delicious they are, none of them qualify as caviar. So what makes caviar so special that it gets its own category, its own mythology, and its own stratospheric price? Caviar is not just any fish egg. It comes specifically from sturgeon, an ancient family of fish that has been swimming the Earth's waters for over 200 million years. These creatures are literal living fossils, older than the dinosaurs. And for reasons rooted in tradition, biology, and taste, only the unfertilized, salt-cured roe from sturgeon can legally be called true caviar. That means species like beluga, ossetra, and sevruga, names that sound like chapters of a royal family tree, are the exclusive sources of real caviar. The curing process is crucial. The eggs are washed, sieved, lightly salted, and aged just enough to deepen their flavor. That simple, careful transformation is what elevates these eggs from raw roe to the luxurious delicacy known around the world as caviar. The very word, caviar, comes from the Persian term for bearing eggs, and throughout history, it became a prized centerpiece at the tables of Russian tsars, Persian nobility, and European aristocrats. So whenever you see caviar on a menu, you're not just seeing the word for fish eggs, you're seeing a label reserved for one of the world's most exclusive foods. Now, the next big difference is how these eggs are harvested, because this is where the price gap really begins to make sense. For most roe, like salmon, flying fish, or herring, the process is relatively straightforward. These fish mature quickly, reproduce often, and are harvested in large numbers. Their eggs are removed, rinsed, salted, or marinated, and then they're ready for markets around the world. That's why you can buy them fresh or frozen, in jars or in bulk, without requiring a second mortgage. Roe from these fish is abundant, fast to produce, and simple to process. Caviar, however, comes from sturgeon, one of the slowest growing fish on the planet. A female sturgeon can take 10, 15, even 20 years before she produces her first batch of eggs. Imagine waiting 2 decades just for one harvest cycle. Historically, the fish had to be killed to retrieve the roe. That meant one fish equaled one harvest. Combine long maturity times with overfishing, and many sturgeon species quickly became endangered. Today, modern aquaculture has introduced more sustainable, no-kill methods, where eggs can be gently extracted without harming the fish, allowing her to produce more in the future. Even so, the process remains incredibly labor-intensive. After harvesting, the eggs are washed with painstaking care, checked for imperfections, sorted by size, color, firmness, and shine, and then graded. Each batch must meet exacting standards. One slight flaw, a burst egg, a dull surface, an uneven texture, and the value drops instantly. That level of precision, combined with the scarcity of the fish and the decades-long investment required to raise them, explains why a small tin of caviar can cost more than a month's rent. And now, the part everybody wants to know: what do they actually taste like? Caviar and roe might look similar at first glance. They're both glossy, translucent pearls, but the experience could not be more different. Caviar is prized for being subtle, elegant, and incredibly smooth. It has a buttery, nutty flavor with a clean brininess that whispers rather than shouts. The beads are delicate. They don't crunch, they sigh. When you gently press them against the roof of your mouth, they release a luxuriously creamy burst of flavor that's oceanic, but refined. Different sturgeon species offer different flavor notes. Beluga caviar is famously soft and velvety. Ossetra is firmer with a complex nuttiness. Sevruga is smaller and more intense, delivering a sharper pop of savory brine. This is why caviar is often compared to fine wine. It's all about nuance, aroma, and finish. Fish roe, in contrast, is bolder, louder, even. Salmon roe delivers a strong, unmistakably oceanic burst of briny liquid that fills your mouth instantly. Tobiko is crunchy, sweet, and salty all at once, often dyed bright colors for visual flair. Herring roe has a grainy texture and robust flavor. These roes bring energy, color, and fun to a dish. They are not subtle, they are celebratory. If caviar is a symphony played by a grand orchestra, roe is a lively street performance with drums and bright costumes. Both are enjoyable, but for very different reasons. Because of their differing personalities, caviar and roe also occupy very different roles in cuisine. Caviar is almost always the centerpiece. It's served in tiny portions because a little goes a very long way. It's placed on blinners, crackers, or toast points, never mixed in, never hidden. It's often accompanied by crème fraîche, chives, or soft-boiled eggs, all subtle flavors designed to support rather than overpower its delicacy. And yes, caviar has its own set of dining rules, including using mother-of-pearl spoons instead of metal ones. That's not snobbery. Metal can react with the eggs and alter the taste, so non-reactive materials keep the flavor pure. It's the culinary equivalent of drinking vintage wine from the right kind of glass. Roe, on the other hand, is the extrovert of the seafood universe. It goes on sushi, in pastas, on canapes, in dips, over rice bowls, anywhere you want color, crunch, and a burst of salty excitement. It enhances dishes rather than dominating them. It's accessible, versatile, and fun. Caviar is luxury. Roe is flavor. Both have their place. So which one is better? Honestly, that depends entirely on what you value. If you appreciate craftsmanship, subtlety, rarity, and tradition, then caviar is the king of delicacies. If you love bold flavor, vibrant color, and culinary creativity at an affordable price, then roe is the champion. One represents the height of refinement. The other celebrates variety and accessibility. And at the end of the day, they both began the same way. Tiny pearls of potential life from the sea, transformed into food that humans around the world have cherished for centuries. Whether you're savoring a silky spoonful of beluga or biting into a sushi roll topped with bright orange tobiko, you're tasting a lineage of history, culture, and craftsmanship. So the next time someone confidently says, "Isn't caviar just fish eggs?" you can smile and say, "Well, yes. But also no. It's so much more." It's a story that begins with prehistoric fish, winds through royal courts, spans international farming innovations, and ends with a tiny bite that carries oceans of meaning. Thank you for watching. If you have ideas for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments. We'd love to feature your suggestion in a future episode. If you enjoyed this deep dive into delicacies of the sea, check out our other bingeable channels.